Hey, what's up? This is Chosen, and this video is going to be a longer podcast style discussion with my good friend Kizzle, who is one of the OGs in Raid Shadow Legends content creation. And we're going to bounce around a few different topics. We're going to talk about real-time arena, what that would look like if it came to Raid. Would it be good? Would it be bad? How would Plarium do it? We're going to talk about the business side of things, the aristocrat stock, and then how it relates to Plarium. Is Plarium ever going to branch off from aristocrat? Is Raid ever going to go public? Things like that. Kizzle does a lot of content based on the business and finance side of things. So we're going to be talking about stuff like that and just kind of bounce around and have a casual, fun conversation. So this is going to be what that entails, and I will link to Kizzle's channel down below. He puts out a lot of really good content. It's definitely worth checking out if you are not familiar with his channel yet. So let's get into it. What were you and Darth talking about?
Oh, dude, we were gonna do a video, I think, on like a really awesome subject, and then we got distracted. So we did a video on kind of a little bit of like the history of Raid as content creators.
Nice.
You know, and it wasn't like it was really just he and I talking, you know, about whatever. But the plan was to do it on you know, RTA, you know, because the video I just did. And then he wanted to kind of take it in a direction of, you know, talking about how, you know, what that would look like in time, you know, an empowerment system with, you know, like, could it actually be sustainable for that to go into an esports league? And what would that really look like? And from a business case, how does that make sense? And
by the way, for those of you that I'm sure is like RTA, I'm assuming you mean real-time arena.
Yeah, real-time arena.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just thought there might be some people that didn't catch that, but
yeah, no, good call, because I think in Summoners Wars and definitely in Epic 7, it's, you know, people just call RTA. But I can tell you guys this much, and this is what we were talking about a little bit. Smilegate, who produces Epic 7, they put a tremendous amount of effort into making, you know, RTA a spectator sport. And they went about it by like kind of doing like giveaways if you were to watch like an ultimate championship between, you know, the top 20 players, right? And they actually went in, they had a bracket system. I think it was the top 25 or top 30 players, and it was like a $50,000 cash prize. So they did a lot of really cool stuff to kind of try to turn it into a spectator sport. It just didn't really take off, you know. And I would imagine the biggest reason why is not necessarily because it's a gacha. It's because there's still an RNG element to that game. You know, like there is with Raid. Like, you know, no matter what, something still can resist, right? Even if you're on the better side of the accuracy resistance, you know, algorithm, I guess, for lack of a better term. It can still miss, right?
I don't think real-time arena in Raid would become like an esport. Like, I think it would be something fun for people to watch on Twitch, like for Arena Reset. I think people would like it. But yeah, would it become like some filling up stadiums esport? Like, no, I don't think so. Maybe you do.
No, I don't think so. I don't think that's their goal. I think it would make a tremendous amount of money being whatever it turned into. You know, I think in the process of having, even if it was just the top 300 spenders spending more and more money to compete with each other, I think it accomplished the goal, you know, of being an outlet to monetize the game further than what it is today.
Well,
and I think that's the real goal of it.
And if you had, they're expanding it to top 500, right? Platinum. Mm-hmm. So let's say if Platinum's 500, there's probably somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000 people seriously trying to get those 500 spots, right? Somewhere around there.
That sounds about right.
And those 1,000 to 2,000 people are probably what percentage of the spending on Raid? Gotta be like half. It's gotta be like half of it.
Yeah, because it's the competitive aspect, right? I think it's the two elements, in my opinion. I mean, just as a person that spent way too much money on gacha games, right? It's been around them for a little bit. A story that I like, I'll keep it brief, you know, but there's this game called Lords Mobile. I don't know if anybody in your channel has ever played it, but let me know if you guys played Lords Mobile. So like Hermo, which is a guy I used to talk about a lot on my channel. This dude was he's like a self-made multimillionaire. He's one of my best friends. He just thoroughly enjoys whaling on games. That's like something that he has fun doing. Like he'll drop 50,000 on a game like it's no problem, you know. And so I've always enjoyed being close friends with him because he usually lets me play as accounts, right? And I remember one day when we were playing Lords Mobile, they dropped a $10,000 champion. Literally, $10,000 and you can get this champion. And I remember texting him and I was like, bro, like this, no one's ever going to have this champion. Like, this is insane. You know, there's no gacha element to this. It's just 10 grand and you can have this champion. And the way that game worked is if you had that champion, it made a massive difference for you and all your friends. Like anybody that you took along with you, that champion had an impact, you know? And then all of a sudden I was like, we're never going to see anybody buy that. Well, then people did, bro. And then they released two more $10,000 champions. And then it was very popular to have all three, you know? And I remember at the time thinking to myself, like, dude, I'm like on the higher end of spending on this game. I couldn't even fathom a $10,000 drop one day, you know, to just improve my account. But people were doing it left and right on that game. And really the thing that was disappointing about the game was the people that had those three champions really dictated the pace of the game from that point moving forward. You had to find somebody that had all three if you want to be competitive. And then you played with them, essentially.
Yeah,
it was a
that's
different
insane.
game. Yeah.
I can't even imagine how much money I would have to spend $10,000 on a champion in a mobile game. I would have to be making like $5 million a year.
Yeah. Well, I watched Perma do it, and I can tell you the psychology that went into it is he was the type to do some crazy shit. You know, sorry, crazy stuff. I'm trying, Brad. I'm trying. But for Perma, right? He bought an account that had all three of them, right? But he bought it and had a bunch of other stuff, and he bought it for $25,000. So all Perma needed to spend that money was somebody to tell him it happened at a discount. That's all he needed. Because for him, it was not acceptable that somebody out there had a better account than him, because he knew he had the means, right? He knew he had the means to have the best account. You know, so all he really needed was somebody to say, I'll give you a discount. And boom, he was in there, bro, because he was ready to go. So, and then the weirdest part about that game was it was this money pit for everybody. But quarterly, right? I think it was quarterly, you would compete in this all-out inter-game war. And if you were the winner of it, you got a piece of armor, right? And that armor improved your account tremendously. And there was one guy that would win that every quarter. And we found out later on that he spent like $65,000 on the game, but he sold his account for over $100,000. So It became this really wild thing where you could actually make money whaling on this game.
That almost never happens, because there's no way I could sell my account for what I spend. Like,
yeah,
that's very rare that you would get more than 100% return on your account, because everybody's looking for a good deal, or else they're just gonna play, you know.
Yeah, and the reason why was just because that had these like one time, you know.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yep.
You know, so they had that scarcity element. Like, okay, well, this account, nobody else will ever have this. The guy put it into an auction, you know, and essentially, which was very smart to do for him. But we knew this guy that was a broker that brokered accounts, and he put that account into an auction and told us all about it. And I was like, man, that's crazy. But that was actually, if you had those $10,000 units and you participated in an auction, you could probably make your money back on that game. You probably normally make like 60 to 70% of what you put into it, which was dangerous as a spender, because then you start to feel really comfortable spending. It's like, oh, I'll get this money back. I'll get it back when I sell my account, you know. But it was a different type of gacha. Raids, nothing's really in common with Raid. The only reason I bring it up is to say, you know, it surprised me how quickly people jumped on board with a massive, you know, whale machine, like a $10,000 champion. And, you know, how common it was actually to find them after that.
Well, no, it's actually pretty common for people that have insane amounts of money just as a hobby to mess around. I actually saw an article about how Shaquille O'Neal was a big whale on mobile games, and he like owned it. He's like, yeah, in my downtime, I just like to mess around and drop some money on mobile games, So yeah, it's pretty common for people that are like these multi-millionaires to be like, screw it, I'm just gonna have fun and mess around on this today.
Yeah, and honestly, that's how Perma was, you know. So he was cool to hang out with because, like, you know, I mean, there would be times where like I would be like, hey man, like, you know, I'm struggling with this game. It's too much money, blah blah blah. And then like all of a sudden he would give people packs, and then like I'd be like, I'm gonna quit. I'm gonna sell my account, and like, don't sell your account, bro. And also like I'd get like $2,000 worth of packs in my inbox. Like, bro, don't do that. Like, don't do that. But then all of a sudden I'm back in the game because I'm all pumped up. I want to see what the RNG does for me, you know. But it was not that game in particular became a whale generator like that, you know. And so I'm saying that mainly to say, like, you know, don't put that past Raid to become, you know, because frankly for Raid today, if you release our time or real-time PvP, it can become a whale generator, and then the rest of the game can be the rest of the game, you know, and you just get more money out of your big spenders. That's kind of how Platinum Arena is right now, right? A lot of people don't even participate in it, you know. Yeah,
no, I don't even bother, because I told myself from the start, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of trying to keep up with the whale war that it's going to become and trying to do that.
Yeah. No, I think I pushed for it like one time, you know, when my account was in pretty good shape. And what I didn't like about it was, if I remember correctly, when I pushed for it, the game's hardware was really a factor, you know? So you're kind of sitting there and you have no idea really where you're at, you know? That was at least my experience, you know, like within that top, whatever it was, 200, 300 ranking. Because you're getting hit so many times in that process, you know? And, you know, my game was at least shutting down left and right while I was doing that. I was unable to go into queues. It was tough, you know. I remember when I did it with Manable, like over Discord, and I was like, bro, like this sucks. And he was like, this is how it is all the time.
Yeah, like, poor Manable. I remember he would just be so furious and ranting every Sunday night.
Well, dude, I remember I felt bad. Like I didn't want to say anything to him, but like he went out there and bought like, you know, just a legit streaming, you know, setup, an amazing PC, and, you know, DSLR mirrorless camera, bought like everything you can imagine. He's like, bro, it's a business investment. It's a business investment. I was like, yeah, maybe though. Maybe not. You know, it might not be. You might get all that, and like it's a business investment if you're going to sit here and stream 5 nights a week. And I think maybe it's a good business investment, but I would have taken it in bite-sized pieces. And then I remember he told me at one point, he's like, I can only stream 1 night a week, and I was like, well, it might be a bad business investment. Like, you know,
yeah, no, that like
10K or whatever you drop. You know?
Yeah, you really shouldn't just dive in day one and go out and spend 50K on hiring a video editor and hiring all these graphics and get a $10,000 PC setup. And like, you should really kind of slowly grow with your audience, I think, unless you're just so insanely rich that it doesn't matter. Like your friend, if your friend was going to get into content, I mean, sure, spend 50K, like, but
yeah. Well, the challenge for Manable was, you know, he's not insanely rich. I mean, I'm not going to, you know, I don't want to say what he makes, but I mean, he made on par with what I make as an entrepreneur. I mean, he as an entrepreneur made on par what I make as a, you know, as a corporate employee. And I remember thinking to myself, like, I wouldn't spend this money on this dude. Like, I think this is a little of a miss here, you know, but he saw it. He was entrepreneurial enough to see it as an investment. And that's what made it dangerous. You know, I think in his actual business that he's an entrepreneur for, it had paid off for him quite a bit to take big risks, you know. But that was the unfortunate side of it is, you know, if you're setting yourself up to have a really good streaming platform, well, then you're just inviting yourself to do a lot of work, you know. And that's the thing you might not realize at the time while you're buying the PC. Everything else is, well, now you gotta go do, you know, 5-6 nights a week of streaming.
Yeah, now you gotta go stream 30 hours a week.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you started saying he can only stream 1 night a week, I was like, bro, don't do this. This is a bad move. You know, but I know later on he kind of said that approaching it the way he approached it is eventually what got him out of it. You know. So this is kind of a cautionary tale.
Well, he still doesn't Manable randomly jump on like every 2 weeks or so and stream or something?
I don't know. I mean, I would imagine after buying that setup, he probably, I don't know. You know, honestly, I haven't kept up with him. I haven't got. Is he still like top tier Platinum Arena?
I don't think so. I think he still dabbles and plays Raid casually, and I think because he's raided me. He raided me like 2 weeks ago. I think he still randomly streams.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know that he like goes hard on, you know, top 10 Platinum Arena anymore.
Okay. No, that makes sense. You know, he I know that was his thing for a long time, but he would get really frustrated with people like win trading and everything else. And then I felt like he was just kind of, man, he was just getting one loss after another. It's just a stream of kind of bad luck in the beginning. But I remember he went all in to the three. What is it? Tag team? I always say this shit wrong. Tag team arena, 3v3 arena.
Yeah, they're both. That's both are right.
Tag team arena.
Yeah,
I'm looking at it.
Plarium calls it tag team arena, but it's basically 3v3.
It's a weird name, tag team, because you don't tag them in.
Yeah, I know that it's not like tag team wrestling where you no.
Yeah, it's a little weird, but he was telling me about like how he went all in to get what was it, an avatar on tag team arena.
Yeah, and there's RNG involved on it.
Yeah, and the worst part was he's like, bro, I'm so happy. Like, I'm gonna get the avatar in like a couple of days. He was like, I put so much work into this. He's describing the whole thing to me, and then he sends me a picture of the avatar with like a bunch of crying faces, and it was horribly ugly. I mean, it was not a badass avatar. It was kind of like, I wouldn't rock that, man. That looks weird. That's not. Raid has some cool looking stuff in it. The aesthetic is good. So it was really weird to see like something that looked kind of goofy, I was like, sorry about that, man. Did you not know it would look like that? He was like, no. And I was like, you got something ultra rare that nobody wants. That sucks.
Did you, so for those that didn't see your videos, what's kind of like the highlights of what you've kind of learned and coming back and diving into the business side of things? What should people be on the lookout for coming up kind of?
Yeah, no, it's I did 3 videos. I did 2 of them. Well, I did 2 videos over the last like 18 month, and they were pretty well broken up. Both of them were just on, business changes at Plarium and Aristocrat. And both of them had just really positive, feedback. So I kind of thought to myself, more of this will make sense, but I wasn't really actively playing the game until a week ago. So I am back on the game, so I will probably start to do some in-game content at some point. But I am free to play, and I'm not looking to change that. I kind of want that to be the underlying of my videos moving forward. That spending money on this game is not a good idea. It's a really bad decision typically. I mean, if we get like a banner champion that's really good, that's good value, I'll be the first one to say, hey, look, this is that time where if you're going to spend money on the game, you could probably get this champion for.
They've done that. I don't know if you've been around, but they have done that a couple times. But I don't think it was ever like it was never like Krisk or something as a banner champion. It was always like a decent champion.
Yeah, that's kind of I've seen it, and it's funny. I talked to one of the creative developers a while back, and I told him I think he'd make more money if they did banner champions. And he was like, dude, we would never do that, but I think it's a good idea. And then like a couple months later, they did the first one, which was, I think, was like a relatively decent champion. So I immediately went back to him. I was like, bro, you got to put up like a good champion. And he was like, well, we wouldn't do that because, that affects our main way that we make money or whatever. And I was like, I think you're wrong, though. I honestly think if you had a pity system on a banner, you'd make more money and people would generally be happier. They'd have more champions, And so I hope they connect those dots. It's an opinion. I don't know that for a fact, but that's how most games work. They have a banner system and they have a pity, and you wail really hard and you're guaranteed to get it after like $350 or $400, which is insane for a champion, frankly, but if you have X amount of shards saved up, and you drop 60 shards and you need 100 shards to get the champion, wailing your way to the next 40 is relatively logical. But a banner would be saying if you consume 100, let's say just arbitrarily 120 shards, you're automatically going to get this unit, and they have that one unit as the banner, so you would roll your shards in the regular area that you would roll a shard, and then there would be a new area where you would roll specifically for the champion that you're rolling for. That's how it typically works. So like you would summon for that champion. Yeah,
banner is basically a summoning event. Like and then you get a reward at the end of the event based on like pulling enough to max out the event. Kind of like a battle pass that you complete, but it's based around pulling shards.
Yeah, so if you pull 100 shards, basically the way a banner typically works, you get a 1% chance to get that particular unit. So instead of like a 0.0013% chance like we have for every unit, if you roll on this banner, you have a 1% chance to get, like, let's say, Crisp, right? So that automatically makes you want to roll in that particular area, to roll your shards, because you have a 1% chance to get Crisp now. But what they say is, oh, well, after you've opened 100 shards, we're just going to give you Crisp, And that's the pity system of the banner. So the banner is the 1% chance to get the champion, and the pity system is, okay, well, you spend enough money with us, we're going to go ahead and give it to you. Personally, I think it's a better business model. But
they're really trying to go with like the dopamine RNG though. And by the way, we got snaps with a tier 2. Appreciate that. Nice.
That's good. So you got some different emotes, I'm sure, for tier 2. What's the difference?
So they get their own walk-in music. So they get to pick a soundbite. So when they join the stream, it plays something, and they get to redeem like an artifact cleanse or like a 15-minute account takeover once a month. So yeah, and then I got some different emotes and stuff, but I gotta add more to the emote roster. It's been like a year since I've added emotes.
I got you. But no, I kind of want to tangent there. But so my videos recently are really just breaking down the business side of what Plarium's doing. And one of the videos, I was doing a lot of research on it, and basically, I went through the publicly traded company that owns Plarium, which is Aristocrat. They have a what we would call in the US a 10K filing, but over in Australia it's just a public release. They don't have a special name for it. But essentially they have an annual filing, and then they do a quarterly filing where they report their financials, and then the management team gives their, basically their story as to what those financials mean. And then there's a question and answer at the end of the annual in particular, sometimes the quarterly, depending on how they do it. And the question and answer typically happens more often the better they're doing, because they're more excited to answer questions, right? Because they have a good story to tell. So I go through all that stuff, right? And I try to figure out what they're doing that isn't as, prevalent in just watching the game and the actual, the news in the game, because the news in the game is nonsense, right? So Razlev said something, management team lies to investors. This is a really carefully nuanced area, right? It's a lot of why corporations are completely full of shit, right? The reason why is you can't lie to your investors, all right? That's called fraud, right? It's actually kind of a big deal. You cannot mislead them. Misleading your investors is the definition of fraud, right? However, if you get everyone to believe the bullshit, then you're not lying, right? It's really that simple. If you get the whole team on board with the story, you're not lying. You're just misled. That's it.
As long as it's not intentional.
Yeah. If you're drinking the Kool-Aid hard, then you're not full of shit. Not illegally. Now, legally, for in other ways, you're probably totally full of shit. But as far as the law is concerned, which is what matters, you're not full of shit. You are sticking to the corporate strategy, and you are a product of its results. So it's I wish I were being hyperbolic, man. It's actually kind of true. Every corporation out there right now talks about ESG, right? And it's something that came up in my company. I gotta be careful. I actually work for a publicly traded company now, and I'm relatively high up in it, so I can't say too much. But I can say that I never have been asked to quantify ESG until recently. And essentially what that means is, how well represented is our board, as far as men and women and people, of multiple races are concerned. What are we doing to hire disadvantaged people? Which I think are important things, but I've never been asked to quantify it, right? And then more importantly, what positive impact are we having on the environment, right? Now, I work in commodities, so we have zero positive impact on the environment, right? But we have to show that we're trying to have a better one, So it's wild. We have to be, we have to have like different internal stories than we've ever even had to have. So it's a very bizarre time. And what surprises me the most is one of the companies in our industry came out and brought in a new CEO recently. And the CEO just flat out said, "Oh, we're going to be more ESG focused," right? We're going to be focused on, having, hiring completely out of fairness. We're going to reduce our carbon footprint. We're going to do all this great stuff. And the stock skyrocketed, even though there's really no way for them to do that. And they haven't done any of it, but they're saying it. So it's kind of like I said a minute ago, as long as you're completely full of shit as an organization, you're not necessarily lying to anyone, right? It's a tough line to dance over, but it's possible, Unfortunately, I deal with this shit all the time, it's looking at the ways other companies represent themselves, in the public's eye or to their shareholders is something that's a big part of my day-to-day job.
Yeah, of course. And what came out of the Plarium reports then?
Well,
in terms of the outlook, that wasn't BS.
Well, to be honest, they are doing very really smart things as a business. Now keep in mind, I'm not a mobile gaming expert or a gaming expert. I work in commodities. So oil and gas and mining are my background. So dealing with consumerism and retail is something I'm completely unfamiliar with. But good business decisions are good business decisions, right? You can kind of see when they're doing things to monetize things and when they're creating, revenue and all that kind of shit. So essentially there was a couple standouts. The biggest one was they were able to kind of create a narrative. I think is maybe a good way to put it. During COVID, that buying Plarium made a lot of sense. And it did, right? Because all of their business was in slot machines, and then they bought Plarium, right? So they bought Plarium, and this is kind of a leak at a future video. They bought Plarium in a company called Big Fish. Well, Big Fish is something they don't like to talk about because Big Fish actually got involved in a lawsuit with the federal government and the state government of Washington because they were putting illegal gambling apps on the App Store, which is proof. There's proof of that, right? So they don't like to talk about Big Fish, so they try to ignore that, but they talk a lot about Plarium, right? And I'm gonna do a whole video on that, by the way, kind of diving into what's actually legal about gacha and where there's precedent. It's just, man, it's a tough video to write about because I'm good at legal writing, but I'm not a lawyer, so yeah. Getting into it is challenging. But with that, basically in the question and answer section for the second quarter report of 2021, right, where they were covering the end of the year 2020 and the beginning of the year 2021, the first half of the year, they talked about organic growth initiatives in RAID. Now, organic growth, right, that just means you spent money on the existing business. So you did something to improve your business. You changed it, right? But you improved the existing business that you have today. So the only changes they had made at that point were Clan Declan and Doom Tower, right? But what they did was they said that, spending money on the game, right, spending money on organic growth initiatives, i.e. Clan Declan and Doom Tower, caused a significant increase in revenue for Raid Shadow Legends. And then what they actually very specifically said was they found so much success in this that they were looking to go do it with other games, right? So for me, it was like this false positive where I think some people like Doom Tower for what I've, talked about people in the community with. I think it's okay. I like anything that gives me free stuff. It gives me some free stuff. I hate Clan Clan. I think it's terrible content, but basically they were sitting back and saying adding this content improved their revenues dramatically. And there was proof of the revenue increases. So much proof that they were able to kind of create a story and say, hey, we can go do more of this with other games. So that's a big part of the story is, unfortunately, we spend so much money on this game as players. I don't really anymore. I know you don't either. But the player base spends so much money in this game that it makes it look like the trash content that they produce is actually successful, right? So as leaders of the game, as the developers of the game, you're just going to do more of the same because it's succeeding by all metrics that count. All the metrics that count are financial. More people are buying your stock than were yesterday, and your value has appreciated, right? And that's due to an increase in revenue, and the increase in revenue comes from the fact that you put Doom Tower and CBC in the game. Whether or not the player base likes it, they spent the money on it, so they gave the message that they liked it. And that's a big part of what I try to talk about in my last 3 videos or really 5 videos, if I'm being honest. And that's how we've been very misleading to Plarium by continuing to buy stuff, even though we're not necessarily in love with the game as it stands, The other thing that I found out that I thought was really, really interesting was really that it looks like they're doing real-time arena based off everything I've seen, And I remember there were some conversations that took place in 2019, 2020, when I was on the moderator group. I think you were too, for their Discord.
Oh God, the Kizzle and Chosen moderator days.
But basically, what happened there was I don't know if you remember this, because we didn't do a lot of effort. We didn't put a lot of effort in being moderators, right? But the reason we were moderators, so everybody understands this, right? Darth, me, and Brad were moderators because Ranger was the community manager, and you could never get a hold of this dude. But if you messaged Cirilla, she would message you back in like 5 minutes, right? So Ranger was the content creators manager, and the moderators manager, or the community manager, was Cirilla. So we were like finding out things that were happening within the game from the moderators. People like Dragon Paws were like, hey, by the way, the game has this coming. And we'd be like, dude, we would have loved to have known that. We would have made videos about it. So essentially we had to become moderators so that we could get the news, the updates for the game. They were getting news before we were as content creators.
And they had a little spreadsheet tracking moderator activity. And every week Cirilla would post a spreadsheet and it'd be like, everybody's just crushing it, doing a good job. And then the bottom 3, Kizzle, Chosen, Darth at 0. And every week it's like, are you sure you guys want to be moderators? You're not helping out with cleaning up the forums, and you're not.
Well, dude, I remember like they put me in like the Q&A section, and they were like, Kizzle, you'd be perfect for this. All your stuff is guides. And I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And then like I got on there, I answered like 1 question, and then I didn't even realize I got asked like 30 after that. I never answered any of them. I felt terrible about it once I realized it, but I just didn't. It's a forum, I mean, like I barely go on Reddit. Like, why am I going to go to an old forum, on Plarium's website to try to answer questions or whatever? I mean, I always kind of felt like just tag me in Discord and I'm happy to, answer whatever. But yeah, basically, she would do the community managers of the moderators, right? They would have an annual meeting with the creative developers. And, in that meeting, they would take ideas from the community managers. So we were able to kind of submit our ideas or questions, and then they would come back and tell us, what the feedback was from the creative developer. So they gave you this ostensible sense that your opinions mattered, or that you could have some, look, when we were all content creators in the beginning, our main focus was, how are we going to get these guys to fix this game? So like most of us ranted all the time, besides Brad. Brad was always able to somehow not rant. But like, we were all sitting here going, we're all considering going full time. And every time we take another step into going full time, they do something to really scare us and go, man, this game isn't going to last. They're doing really stupid stuff. So like, if somebody said, oh, hey, come over here and we'll listen to what you have to say, we all did it, because we were like, okay, cool. That makes us feel better about considering being full-time content creators, But at the time, it was new. We weren't used to Raid just being that way, right?
It was wild times. Yeah, it was wild times. There was it was not like it is now, where there's like, a content creator program and a flow of information, and everything leaks in 2 minutes after people know about it. There's data miners. Like, no, this is it was way different back then.
Yeah, it was way different. It was 2019, really. It was, and maybe the beginning of 2020 is the time frame I'm referring to, but
2019. This is like the summer of 2019.
Yeah. Is when I think I was a moderator up to like mid-year 2020, but like the last 6 months in 2020, I didn't do anything. And it's eventually like removed me as a moderator, and they kept me as a content creator forever. And then what was wild was I did that video bashing Plarium, right? Talking about how their CEO got replaced. And I didn't even ask. They added me back to the content creator program and kept me in there for like 3 months. I only did one video. And I was like, okay, because in the content creator program, obviously you're given gyms and other stuff. Like there's some incentive to be in it, but I never once. I mean, I asked to be in it originally when I had like 1,000 subscribers, and they put me in at that point. But it was wild when they put me in it the second time because I just got a message from it was the guy after Ranger. I don't think he's there anymore.
The Diamond.
The Diamond, yeah. He just messaged me. He's like, "Hey, man, just want you to let you know I add you back to the content creator program. You're gonna be getting gyms. Look forward to the rest of your videos." And I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna get gyms and stuff. That's great. That's great news. Like, okay, cool." And you're supposed to do a certain amount of videos. I never did any of that, and I was in it for a little bit. So I was a little bit surprised that they did that. I almost kind of felt like they wanted me to maybe not do more videos like that, because I did pull up the guy's LinkedIn on my on my YouTube. I was like, this is the guy that got fired.
It's like Darth yesterday. He's posting his conversations from dating apps. Just like doesn't even blurt out the picture or the name or anything. He's just posting the conversations on Twitter.
Oh, dude. I could probably do a channel on my conversations and dating apps. There's this own world of content in that, so I can certainly relate to how that's probably been really entertaining for him or fun for him. But
I can only imagine.
Yeah, they're not. I can tell you this much in just a simple statement, right? I was sitting at dinner the other night with one of my colleagues, and he's about to have his first kid. He's recently married. And he's like, "Man, are you on dating apps?" And I was like, "I was up until recently." He's like, "Dude, I missed that. Like, I really wish I would have gotten on board with that." And I'm like, "Bro, I said that so many times."
Yeah, no, you don't.
Married. No, it's a terrible thing. He's like, "Well, bro, you just swipe and it's all." I was like, "No, it's not like that, dude. It's not like that at all. It's a horrible process. You want nothing to do with it." But yeah, the grass is definitely greener when it comes to that kind of stuff. So I had to make that comment. But yeah, it's but no, on the recent content, we dive into a lot of stuff. I think all the videos have some areas where I'm maybe ranting a little bit. The most recent video I did, I actually went back and I rewatched it a couple times, and when I edited it, I really felt like pretty much everything I had in there was pretty relevant. I talked about it a lot, but essentially I just mainly talk about the fact that I personally believe, it's an opinion for sure, but the empowerment system was brought in before. So I think it's all done very intentionally. I think Clan v Clan was the first step. All right. So today they make money on the gadget element, right? The dopamine, like we talked about a second ago. All right. We get a gold flash instead of a blue flash, and we're really excited about it. That's how they make money today, right? We're making it overly simple, but that's the gadget element, right? The other side of making money is, in my mind, in these games, is competition, right? So can you will harder than the other guy, and if you do, you win something. It doesn't really matter what you win because it's competition, right? I think Clan v Clan was the first step into that. They probably said to themselves, "Man, this is working. Like, this is really good. Like, we're making a lot of money on Clan v Clan." And Clan v Clan's content's awful. I mean, it's not really content. So then you kind of very naturally work your way into, what if we had live, like legitimate live content, like legitimate live competition? How much money would people spend to get an edge? And I think that's ultimately the thesis statement that created the empowerment system. And because look, the empowerment system is very sloppy, right? Because it's really the dupe system, the empowerment system. We're talking about the same thing, but the empowerment system is just a version of the dupe system. So we see like 3 different solutions to dupes.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Right
Token trader, empowerment. Yep.
There's
There's different ways to kind of use your dupes.
Yeah. So between boosting your faction, which I think is actually great. I think that was a smart one of the group. Token trader, I think, is smart. I think those two make a lot of sense. And then all of a sudden, here comes this one where you can basically turn your champion into a demigod. It can be a raid boss, so to say, and you can do it. You got to think it's wild, but you can do it if you have 5 duplicates. And this is a game that doesn't really encourage you to have duplicates because it doesn't have banners, right? You can't specifically roll for certain champions all the time. You can, on certain weekends. But most games would have a banner up at all times for 1 or 2 different units, right? And then all of a sudden, you know, they would rotate that in and out, and you know, they don't like that system for whatever reason. But in that sort of system, you know, duplicates are commonplace. You might even roll 4 duplicates, right? So I think what you're going to see next is a banner system on units like, you know, turn meter, you know, units, or units that are essential to competitive arena. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if you see a SIFI, if that's, you know, the main meta unit, which to my last understanding was, you know, in a banner system that you can get fully empowered, because that's just a quick, clean, easy cash grab, you know. But the empowerment system is, you know, has such a wide spectrum. I honestly believe because it's going to go out there and fleece the whales that want to compete with each other. And if you think about it, you know, it still leaves plenty of room for average players to be average players. It's just, you know, where the whales are going to be spinning against the whales. You know, because my question would be, if I were sitting in a room where people were discussing that, is, well, does that like ostracize new players or regular players? You know, I don't think it does. I think it just lets the whales sit here and compete with the whales. And I think Platinum Arena and Clamby Clan were kind of their first ventures into this idea. I think they kind of planned it. You know, if you sit here and you say, well, no, Platinum Arena helped us. You know, people like, you know, people just don't participate in it if they don't want to do it. Clamby Clan showed us that you can spend money on competition, right? And then now you have the empowerment system, which is a way to be extremely competitive in the game as soon as you drop the real-time PvP, which I think is what's coming next.
And how would real-time PvP look in Raid?
I imagine they would steal, you know, the draft system that's in Epic 7 and Summoners Wars. I think Summoners Wars is a whale fest, is what I've been told. In my opinion, Epic 7 is kind of a whale fest in real time. But Epic 7 does have a free-to-play player that's constantly in the top 10. And he is extremely smart. I mean, he's like a professional chess player kind of dude. You know, that's how he thinks very differently than everybody else. So if you, outside of him, you know, you really have a whale generator. You know, so I think what you look at is the way the draft system works in both those games is you both queue up, you enter, both of you blind, right, ban 1 unit. So let's say you right there, you would both ban Siffy, or you would ban Siffy and the other one bans, I don't know, Lysandra or Arbiter, right? Then you would enter the first, like randomly, one player is going to get the first draft, right? The first draft is 1 unit, right? So whoever drafts the first unit, you know, let's say on the left side you draft your first unit, then the guy on the right side is going to draft 2 units, then you draft 2 units, then he drafts 2 units, then you draft your last unit. Essentially, you draft 5 units each, and then each person bans a unit, and then you go in with 4 units. I think that's exactly how it would look.
But like 4 champions of your roster?
Yeah, 4 champions of your roster, your gear, your everything. It's not like League of Legends where, you know, you enter in or whatever. It's not a PvP system that strips gear. It's a PvP system that uses your gear, you know, on your units. So you can't choose a unit or, you know, a champion that you don't have.
So then you would kind of have the meta game of, I'm not even going to put any gear on my Siffy and waste good gear because everybody's going to ban my Siffy anyway. So I might as well just use my Siffy's God Tier gear on somebody that won't get banned.
Yeah, that's a very common thing. And then the meta shifts so much in that environment, you know.
Yeah, because then at the same time the opponent will be thinking, okay, they're probably not going to gear their Siffy because they think I'm going to ban it, so I'm going to.
Yeah. Yeah.
You get all sorts of reverse psychology.
It can be fun. The draft is fun. You know, you win. Yeah, they always say like half of the game is determined in the draft when you play Epic 7. So like, I got up to like the top 150 about on Epic 7. I didn't get into the top 100, which is what they call legend. You know, but I got in top 150, and it took a lot of effort, dude. It was a lot of effort, and essentially it's fun because you counter draft. If you have a deep pool of champions, then you can counter pretty much anything your opponent puts up. So essentially the way it works in Epic 7 is you choose like 3 really strong independent units, you know, champions, and you know, then but that are very neutral. They could be hardcore offensive, they could be hardcore defensive, they can buff, they can debuff, they can strip, they can kind of do a little bit of everything. And then your opponent somebody eventually goes away from being neutral and starts actually picking like, okay, a debuffer. All right, they pick a debuffer. I'm making sure I'm picking somebody that can cleanse, or they're going to basically do a cleave comp, so I'm going to make sure I have a really good defensive comp, or I have the ability to offensively cleanse. That way I can strip off any attack buffs or crit buffs or whatever. So it is fun. It really is. And it would not surprise me that Plarium goes.
Yeah, but then what?
Route.
The battle happens on full auto, or what?
No, it's it's turn based, but the battle actually happens live. You sit there and you decide what you're going to do next.
Yeah, I think if they implemented it properly, it could be a thing in Raid. Like I said originally, I don't think it would ever be like an esport, but I think it could be successful in the context of the game. If the big caveat, if they did it properly, which would be a big if.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's look, one of the challenges of Raid, right, is Plarium usually copies somebody else, but then they put like a last minute spin on it. They make it their own, and that's usually where they fail, right? That's just my experience with Plarium across the board, right? So it wouldn't surprise me that they go, okay, here's the real-time arena system, but we want to make it a little bit different, and then they fail in that. And I asked one day very specifically to one of the creative directors, because I used to talk to one of the creative directors over there like almost every day. He was a super cool dude. Not like talking to most people at Plarium, just a really laid back dude. I know you know who I'm talking about. But
yeah.
Ultimately, I was like, man, like what? Why do you guys always put a bad spin on stuff? Like, why not just use the existing system that works? It's worked for Summoners Wars.
Don't want to get sued.
Epic 7.
Don't want to get sued.
Well. For him, what he told me was, he was like, look, we do decision by committee here. And in our committee, there's not everyone has played the game. And he was like, so some people are just really tied to ideas that have no reflection in the actual gameplay, or have no ties to the way the game actually works. And I was like, well, that's kind of right. That was the first time I ever got that dude to really be like, to show his frustration with the way the game is being managed, And I was like, essentially, you guys have really good ideas, and it was honestly, it was during Tag Team Arena. So he basically came in and he was like, I said, how's Tag Team Arena going to go? And he was pissed. He was like, honestly, bro, it's probably going to be some shit where, you got 3 teams and they just fight each other randomly. And I was like, really? And he was like, yeah. He's like, we had some really cool ideas. And he was like, honestly, I'm frustrated. He was like, because we do decision by committee here, and we just couldn't get certain people to see past, really the good idea, or see value in the better ideas. They were pretty, determined from day one to just throw out, a new system that was exactly the same as the old one, just had more teams, And I was like, do you even play the game? He was like, no, none of them do. And I was like, okay, well, there's your answer. That makes perfect sense.
I learned that in I don't know if you were around at this time or if you heard about it, but they did a conference call with some of us content creators, like individually, where I would be in a conference call with like 10 people from Aristocrat, like the people above Plarium.
Oh, okay.
And they would be like asking me questions and how would the players feel about this, and how like. And yeah, these people were like from the business world, and they very clearly had no clue about gaming or mobile games, or it was kind of blowing my mind. I was like, have you guys ever gamed in your life? Like, like the questions they were asking me, I was like, really? Like, but I was happy to help. But it did kind of shock me on, these are people that like went to university or something and studied something, but they never actually like gamed.
Yeah. No, I think there's a lot of that there, and he made that very clear. And then I remember one of the first conversations I had with that creative director and his boss. His boss, led on the fact that he didn't really play very much, and that they had one resident expert, and it was this guy, and that's kind of how he introduced the guy. And I was like, I kind of jokingly said, "So you're the only one here that plays Raid?" And he was like, "Pretty much." And I was like, ooh, okay. And then, like, even in talking to him, you can tell he played the game, but he was not an in-game player by any sense of, of that work. He was not, he couldn't sit here and talk to me or you at the time, or any in-game player. He knew enough about the game to be able to effectively market it, and that was really about it. Like, he could look at the marketing metadata and say, oh, well, a lot of people are spending, like I'll give you an example. Like, this actually came from him, but he talked a lot about the fact that, they realized they had to start changing artifact set bonuses because all anyone ever farmed was Dragon, because Dragon gave speed. And frankly, that helped them really kind of realize that speed was, really the meta in the game, but it made them want to do something different because they wanted the other dungeons to get, more attention essentially. But they had the metadata to determine how many hours. They've always had, since it was acquired, the data to determine what you do when you're on the game, how much, where you spend your time, how much of your time in percentages for every player.
I think since they added Platinum Arena, Fire Knight is the most grinded dungeon. But I think you're right. Back in the day, before Platinum Arena, the #1 grinded dungeon was Dragon.
Yeah, and this was before Platinum for sure. So, and I was surprised even to see like in Platinum that it shifted. But it makes sense. With Savage gear and
immunity,
then especially immunity gear. Yeah, that makes perfect sense because what in Epic 7 you have that too. Essentially you have to have immunity gear in Epic 7 on all your units, so that you don't just get like walked through by a team that does like heavy debuffing. And then the bad part is immunity can get stripped in Epic 7. So then essentially you have a stripping unit, and then
it can get stripped in raid as well. Yeah.
Like if you have an immunity set, does it give you like it increases your resistance, right? So I mean, like you're still in that resist versus accuracy.
There's one that does the upgraded immunity set that you can craft in the forge. Gives you it basically blends the resistance and the immunity set. But the immunity basically puts up a block debuffs buff, and it can get stripped.
Yep. That's the same in Epic 7. Yeah, same in Epic 7. So, yeah, it's a block debuff buff that can get stripped. And then in Epic 7, they also have an immunity set that's different, and that would, improve your statistics or whatever.
And it's it's why Warlord is so insanely strong, is because he doesn't actually debuff you. He just blocks your skills. So he goes through the immunity set. So you've got immunity, it doesn't matter. He goes through the immunity set and blocks your skills and locks you out.
Okay, I didn't realize that. Okay.
Yeah, that's why Warlord is so like meta in Plat Arena, because he just breaks the immunity set.
I got you. That's interesting.
Alrighty, so huge shout out to Kizzle for taking the time to join me. It's always fun to get to hang out with other creators and other people and get their perspectives on things as well. So like I said in the intro, I will link down below to Kizzle's channel. Definitely worth checking out if you have not seen his channel before. So that'll be down below. And as always, thank you for watching. Have a good rest of your day. Peace.